Speaking of forget it, when you move on to 4A, Norwell and Dwenger had to forget about the regular season, had to forget about their records, and they have done a great job of flipping the switch. How have they been able to do that? Because they're going to be meeting for a sectional championship game in Sectional 12 this Friday night down in Ossian.
Yeah, I think if you look at both teams, they're relying on some younger players as it goes along, but those players that are the upperclassmen, juniors, and seniors have also picked up the pace for both teams. I think as it got to the tournament level, it's like, hey, especially seniors, this is it. You know, if we don't win this game, it's over. Our football career is over. For high school athletes, especially those that may not play at a next level, that's huge. I mean, you don't want that career to end, and so there's maybe a little extra drive, and then you win that first game in the sectional. Mm-hmm. Suddenly it's going, hey, we're winning. Anything can happen at this point, and they've both proven that it can.
With Dwenger, you know they have some of the talent out there. DeMarcus Moon had a couple of touchdowns against Columbia City. They were up 28-0 4 seconds into the second quarter against Columbia City, and it ended up 36-14. You knew Dwenger had the horses. For Norwell, going winless in the regular season, to have done what they have done, what have you seen? Because I know you've been on a lot of those games. What have you seen on the field that's allowed them to be that successful?
Well, I think one of the things they've done is they've picked up offensively. They had a season high of 14 points in any of the first 9 games. They've scored 22 in each of the playoff games. So they're completing drives, and we talked about that last week. That was a difference for them, is to drive, complete the drives. But also they've got guys, senior guys on the line, both sides of the line, guys like Drew Rinkenberger and guys like Alex Mills, guys that are really stepping up as they've gone through the season. You know, as I mentioned, you get to that point where you've got to make it happen, and they're just playing with more inspiration, I think.
To your point about the offense, Pearson Harnish, a sophomore coming in, had a great season as a freshman as a linebacker, but still really learning the quarterback position, and it seems like he's using his weapons a little bit better as well. How has that maturation process evolved down in Norwell for Pearson Harnish? Obviously, we make the comparisons to his brother Chandler, but here's a guy who has all that thrust upon him and has seemingly taken the next step to being a quarterback at the high school level.
Right. Well, I was talking with Jeff Miller, the coach, after the game against New Haven, and I said, how has Pearson become better as the season gone on? And he said, well, I think he was very good to start with. Now he's got an improved offense. They're able to put more plays in. He's become more comfortable with his offensive weapons. He's been able to mix the run and the pass together. They didn't have much of a pass game earlier in the year, so now they're mixing that up a little bit more. And, you know, with success comes confidence, and I think he's just settled into that position a lot more. And he's a bruising runner, but he's become a much more effective passer.
And not to overlook the Norwell defense, they throw a shutout against Logansport, and then 22-20 in the victory over New Haven. Anthony Moore, Jordan Hogue, Kevin Ware, to hold those guys to 20, that's pretty impressive.
Well, that was probably the most impressive part of that win. Norwell went into the game wanting to control the clock offensively. Easier said than done because New Haven's got a good defense as well. But they were able to do that to an extent. But the Norwell defense especially was able to get some pressure on the quarterback, whether Ware was there or whether Hogue was there, was able to really bring some heat on him. Now they can't stop him completely because when you've got weapons like that, New Haven was able to come back second half and really put some pressure on towards the end of the game. But you're right, defensively, Norwell did a great job in that game.
If you're Chris Schwarzkopf, you know you're going to be making the trip to Wells County this week. What do you tell your guys? What do you focus on in practice to try and help the Saints earn another sectional championship as they go down and play Norwell?
Well, I think you draw on a couple of things. If you're Chris Schwarzkopf, you draw on the tradition of Dwenger. Okay, this is where they expect to be every year, is in a sectional championship game. You point out that even if you're younger players, at this point in the season, you're not young. At this point in the season, you know, you are where you need to be. And I think you just go in there saying we're going to play the game that we've been playing as we've got towards the end of the season, where we're expecting to win games, and Dwenger's got to that point.
For a Sectional 11, Wawasee at Concord. Obviously, Concord, a good team, knocked off East Noble in week 1 of the playoffs. Wawasee can score the football, but what do you see perhaps as the biggest hurdle to the Warriors continuing their season as they play Concord?
Well, this is, again, a game where you've got a matchup that they've met before, and Concord was pretty dominant in that first game. So I think that they've got to make sure that they get on the board early. They've got to show that they can play with Concord. If they get behind, that makes it much more difficult because then teams think, well, this is what happened last time we played them. Maybe this is just what it's meant to be. So I think a quick start is just huge for him.